Testing, testing, testing. Blah, 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 blah.
Ready, set, go.
It's time for the Coach Amy and Coach Liz show.
A podcast for endurance athletes by two athletes, two coaches, and a physical therapist.
We are your hosts, Coach Amy
And Coach Liz.
coming to you from Kansas City. Hello, peeps.
Hello.
Back for another episode of the Coach Amy and Coach Liz show. Liz, you recently went to Sin City.
I did.
And it wasn't for a race. They just had a race there. Like that's a half marathon. But why did you go?
You know, I just had some friends who wanted to go. I think we thought it was going to be like warm and we could sit by the pool, but it really wasn't warm.
What?
I know.
What was it?
It was cold.
Oh,
But we just saw some shows. We saw a burlesque show and just saw it. I had never been there before, and it's bananas.
Oh, our group?
I made a bet. I placed a bet.
Oh, you placed a bet?
I did, and I won. I won some dollars.
Yeah, a whole $17.
I did,
You
I
told
won
me.
$17.
Oh my God, you're rich.
I know.
You can quit your day job.
I
now.
can.
We'll just podcast all the time on your $17. Yeah, our group went for the race that they used to have there was a full marathon and a half marathon, and it was a nighttime race, and and we went to one of those shows, and there were it was so awesome. The people are so talented.
Oh my gosh.
In these like Cirque du Soleil type
Amazing.
they're amazing what their bodies can do and stuff. But it was a race show. But I mean, I'm totally comfortable with that. But there were people in our group who were not.
Oh.
And so then that made it uncomfortable. So like if this person's uncomfortable, then you feel uncomfortable with them. And I was like, and then finally I was like, you know what? And it was somebody's friend that they brought along.
Oh,
okay,
my
so it
gosh.
wasn't like really a part of our group.
Yeah.
And she left. It was too much.
It was too much.
But you know what? I mean, I respect that.
Yeah.
People have different backgrounds.
Absolutely.
Maybe they have some different beliefs and
Sure.
stuff. But I kind of felt bad for her. But then after that, I was like, I'm not going to enjoy the show.
Yeah. Well, I know, because you don't want someone. It's hard to have someone else feel uncomfortable.
Exactly. And it was the right thing for her to leave. But it was, the shows there are so good. I'm not a big gambler or anything. Not that I think there's anything wrong with it, but I don't find it entertaining to do. I think it's like, what am I giving them my money for? And then Vegas itself was exhausting because it's never asleep. It's never done. And everything is like 6 times bigger than, like one of the chandeliers hanging in our hotel is the size of my house.
I mean,
it's just hard to,
you
got to go once.
I was like, it was so fun to be totally out of my wheelhouse.
Yes.
It was really
that's
cool.
a good
But
perspective.
the thing that was so interesting is that one of my favorite things to do when I go places is like run around just to get oriented, right? And especially because I'm really bad at directions. And so, I mean, it doesn't matter what country I've been in. I mean, I ran in Lebanon, Malaysia, Cuba, like all of these countries, right? But I love it because it helps me orient, and you get to see things that you would normally get to see. I have never been to a place that I really don't think you could actually run if you stayed in the city. Now, I'm not talking about getting outside of Vegas. Like, we were in Vegas. We were in the middle of, we were on the Strip.
Yes.
But it, like, the way that the sidewalks are, and like, I was looking around, I'm like, I think this might be the first place that
wasn't really fun to run.
I don't even know if you could maybe get in. I mean, there's lots of walking, but it would be a real challenge to do what you would call a run on there, which was fascinating.
Yeah. Did you try to do it in the middle of the day? Because that's when did you try to do it in the middle of the day?
I mean, I didn't even attempt because I was like, I don't think, like, you can't cross the streets, and then the blocks are short, and then they have these, like, it's just.
But you know what I found interesting was that, you think, because talking about the size, okay? Yeah. So, like, you're in this hotel, but everything's to scale, right? It's huge, but it's to scale. So you walk out of your hotel, and it takes, like, 10 minutes just to get across the front of your hotel. And you're like, how are we still not to the place, our destination that we were headed to?
Like, going across the street for dinner was like a 15 or 20-minute journey.
So if you could just run it, you could just go back and forth in front of your hotel and get in 10 miles.
But you're like weaving between, I mean, it's like shoulder to shoulder.
Congestion.
It's bananas.
That's why I asked you what time you did it at, because there's certain times when there's a little less congestion, but.
The only time I saw less congestion was when I caught my flight at like 7 a.m. on Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
But then you see a very select part of the population
Yes.
that is returning, who hasn't been to bed and has perhaps seen the best that Vegas has to offer for them. And they clearly enjoyed their evening. And I'm like, it's going to be a rough day for you, buddies.
Such a different lifestyle. My body, I don't operate that way. So, for me, Vegas was a one and done.
I feel like it's something, I'm super happy that I experienced it because it is just bananas.
And you don't know till you go.
You don't.
It's one of those things.
Right.
You can read about it. People can talk about it. You can watch Hangover.
I know.
The movie Hangover.
Oh my God.
And you still don't get it.
Isn't
that crazy? You're like, I could see how something like that might happen.
It is. It was. I could never have imagined what it would be like. But anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are we going to talk about today? Oh, we are going to talk about, there's these posters or like this saying or quotes about like, and I've even said it myself. It's like I never regret doing a workout. I only regret not doing one. But when you take that quote and you say, well, you will never regret doing one. There are times when you shouldn't do, where you shouldn't do a race and you shouldn't do a workout. And you have to be careful there because you don't want to start making excuses for yourself all the time, because there are people that, that's happening. They're making excuses not to do something. But if you take that quote and you're like, I'm just never going to not do something, right? I'm never going to not show to a race. I'm never going to not do a workout. There are times when you absolutely shouldn't. And I want to talk about those today because if you're one of those people that's thinking that, so we've talked about sleep and sleep hygiene and the importance of sleep. And when you're injured and have enough pain that, it's like, oh, well, don't take meds if you don't have to. But if you're not getting sleep, that's when you need to consider these other things. Lack of sleep on one night doesn't mean you don't need to do your workout the next day. I mean, you're going to get through it. It's okay. In fact, a lot of people don't get very good sleep the night before a race, and it doesn't impact them. It's consecutive nights of not getting sleep. And that's when we get into a lot of trouble. It makes it difficult for us to recover from the workouts that we're doing. It makes it very easy for us to become ill and sick. And so when you are having consecutive, and I like that some of these watches now are tracking, how much sleep, how long we're sleeping and the quality of that sleep, because that's information that it shows up in Training Peaks if someone's allowing that data to be loaded up. And it's something that now we as coaches can just even see without asking them, so it's another part of the puzzle that we can address. So that would be a reason to step back and change your training load until you can get control over, of your sleep. What are the reasons and things that are causing you to not get good sleep? The other is when you are injured. And I love this because it's like running when injured is stupid.
Oh my God.
But then people would be like, but Amy, so one of the reasons I get referrals from, right? Like I'll say, anytime someone walks into the clinic, it's like, oh, well, who referred you? That's my first question out of a new patient's mouth, or out of my mouth to a new patient. Sometimes it's Google, but most of the times it's so-and-so sent me, and they said I won't have to stop running if I go to you when I'm injured. I thought, oh wow, okay, I have this reputation. Let me rephrase what your friend said.
Oh my gosh,
it's like we will do everything possible to keep you running if it's appropriate for you to do so while you're rehabilitating, right? So it's like, I'm glad I have the reputation that I'm not just immediately out of my mouth stop running, right? Like yes, that's true. And my rule of thumb when I talk to people, because that's the question that comes out of their mouth, is when can I start running again? Can I keep running? What can I do? Or swimming or biking or whatever the thing is. And it's, I have a rule of thumb. It's like, if Liz, if you were like, Amy, maybe we're dealing with a hamstring issue or something and you asked me, and I would say, well, it depends on the severity of your pain, right? It's like, if it's a 1 or a 2 out of 10, and it goes away right away, it's not lingering for 3 days, during the run it's a low level, and then after the run it's also a low level. It doesn't shoot up to a 6 and it becomes difficult to walk. These are the things that you're assessing when you determine whether or not someone can continue to run while they're rehabilitating. Maybe we take out speed work, maybe we keep speed work but we take out the long runs. That's a surprise to a lot of people, but sometimes the speed work is actually not crazy digging hard speed. Okay, we're not talking about sprints, but we're talking about just good quality form. Can sometimes actually be better for you during rehabilitation. But anyways, the point is that if you are injured, if you are hurting, even if it's a low level, finding out why that is and not continuing to do that and ignoring it. And then when you're working with somebody and listening to that healthcare provider who is telling you how you should be doing that, and whether or not you can continue and whether you need some time off. Okay, so that's a good reason to not be showing up for a workout or a race. There is a race I showed up at, Rock the Parkway, several years ago. Well, probably more.
It was 1975.
I was 5 years old. Okay. No, but it's been a while. But it, I had this it was this nummy feeling in my foot, and it showed up that morning, and I kept tying my shoe and untying my shoe. It felt like something was in my shoe. It felt like my foot was swollen, but it wasn't. I'm looking at it, and I'm like, what the heck? Kept retying it, tying it, pull my sock, try to situate everything, and 1 mile into that race, the symptoms were not getting better. I could not feel my foot properly. It was affecting how I was running. And I was like, oh, I wanted to I was so trained for it. I wanted to do that race. I knew I could do well for myself. And I was like, this is stupid. Why am I continuing to go? And I walked off. And it's one of the hardest things. And of course, then I was looking for every half marathon possible in the next 2 or 3 weeks so that I could still go. And even though it, and it did subside enough for me to go do it, but I'm like, why am I? It's okay. Just wait. But my point being is that an injury is an excuse, an appropriate excuse to not do a workout or not show at a race or drop out of one. The other is when you're sick. And we've had an episode about this or mentioned it in an episode before where we talked about what kind of illnesses and what kind of sicknesses, obviously a fever, when we're talking about, we've got a nauseous, the stomach, we're vomiting, these kinds of things. I mean, it's mostly common sense, but, usually the neck up is okay.
You remember our audience, right?
Yeah. Okay. Let's say, there's kind of that, a little rule of thumb where if it's, the neck up, you have a mild headache. It's okay. You've got some gook in your nose. That's okay. A little scratchy throat. That's okay. Gurgling in the lungs and flamming up green stuff and fevers, no. Okay. So illness is one of them. And then one that we've talked about, and I'm going to let you chime in here because I feel like you've got good examples of life balance. And it can be easy. There can be a tender line here because I feel like you can come up with all kinds of excuses not to do your workouts and blame it on life balance. But I think there's also a lot of us who we need to take some time and restore balance and reorganize our goals and what we're doing. So do you have a couple examples about that? 'Cause I know I'm throwing you under the bus because...
Oh my gosh.
Why don't you pull one out of the million?
This was a real tough one for me to learn. I do think the biggest thing that you said though is looking at your goals.
Yeah.
And what's going on in your life. And if, sometimes you just gotta adjust your goals so that you can keep showing up. Because if you're just either frying yourself into a point where you are not going to be able to recover from it, or you just skip everything because you're so overwhelmed. Like both of those extremes tell you that it's, maybe some different goals would help you be more consistent and show up. And being tired is part of it. But when you start having things like your memory is going, you can't sleep at night, your appetite is weird, you're really short with your family and friends, ask me how I know this. Like some evaluation I think is a must.
Yeah. And that's a good time to talk to your coach too. I feel like Sometimes people will tell you what's going on in their lives. As a coach, your athletes will tell you, and sometimes they're not. And then you're blown away when suddenly you're figuring out, like, you see this consistent batches of red, and you're like, because if you're on Training Peaks, maybe some of our listeners aren't, but workouts will show up as green when completed, yellow when completed, but maybe under or over what was assigned, and then red is like incomplete. And when we start to see a bit more red and a bit more red, and you're like, oh, well, what's going on? Why are you not, did you just not load up your stuff, or did this actually not happen? And then every once in a while, someone will say something, you're like, well, oh my God, I had no idea that was going on in your life.
I know.
Oh, a major life change, like lost a job, and it may be something that they didn't want to share at the moment, and that's okay too. But these things are big, and they, in terms of life balance, we need to change our goals and alter our goals. It's okay to change them. Goals are flexible. Yeah. But then you also, on the other extreme, if you are finding yourself, maybe you don't have anything in your life that is making it difficult to get your workouts in. Maybe you're completely well, you're getting sleep, you're not injured, it's all going well, and you are cultivating and creating all these excuses why you don't want to do the workout. That's another question to have, because
and that's a different sort of problem.
It's a different sort of problem, and you're making up excuses that aren't really there. And then it's time to reevaluate again. Why are you doing this? What are your goals? Let's change them.
Yeah.
You don't have to do this race. You don't have to go this distance. You don't have to go for a certain time. We can change. Yes, you're ready and prepared to go do this thing, but we can do it for fun. Mm-hmm. Now, you have mentioned something about that, because that's a tricky thing.
Fun is my nemesis.
We've had a podcast on that, because how does that go sometimes?
Because fun, there are athletes who can do races for fun.
And then there are some who
say it's for fun, and it's a whole loaded bag of not fun things.
Right.
So I have strong feelings about that word and how it's thrown around in our sport. So I'm gonna just leave it at that, because I know I've ranted about that before.
Yeah.
But if you find yourself consistently avoiding over and over, and like, I sometimes I'll have athletes, why don't you stop training for triathlon for a while and go and like really focus on strength, or find some strength classes that are really fun, or do some things that are complete, or if you've really done long stuff, why don't you start really just doing short stuff? Or sometimes you just really, your body and your brain need it's like going to Vegas for your body. You just need something that's totally out of your wheelhouse to break up the monotony, to challenge your body and your brain in different ways. And that can be really hard and scary to let that go. But what I often find is that if somebody is willing to go do that, and they're still being active and challenging their body in new ways, when they come back to train, they often are able to train harder, better, and they hit like PRs and they race better, because everything just needed a little bit, it needed to be stimulated in a different way.
Yep. And I have some athletes who the fun part truly is they've embraced and been able to, and they really mean it. And so,
that's great.
And I think people, they can get burnt out from doing all that. Maybe they've had multiple injuries, and this is how they could come back to the sport. Because I have several athletes that I've had, and I've been coaching them for years, and that is their main goal, is fun and stay healthy, and it's working out really well.
And that is and
it's glorious.
And you have to do, I find that most people have to do, some people can just do that.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Some people, they really have to do a lot of inner work to let go of a lot of things, so that then they are able to show up and do things for fun. And I feel like I have struggled with that as I've come off of a much more serious, like, structured training, where it was like, your whole life is sort of revolves around that, to moving kind of back into something where I'm still really active, but being able to like be a little more flexible
and not do it in a competitive way. If you're a competitive person, going to non-competitive is tough.
It is. It takes. I'm still working through that almost on a daily basis, and it's better, and it's a slow moving. But it's probably been 2 years now, and like I'm still signed up for things. I'm still exercising every day. I still do hard workouts, but it's more like I'm exercising and getting stronger and fitter, but there's a difference between exercising and training.
Yes.
Right? And
the end goal is different.
The end goal is different. And especially coming off of a broken foot, like I really get a lot out of doing hard workouts, but I don't need to exercise 3+ hours a day and like have it be like very specific and all of these things that are different when you're really dialed into Ironman training for years and years, right? And but there's a mentality change with that. And if I were just to say, oh, it's all just for fun, then I wouldn't acknowledge all of the work that I have to do to actually get it to be fun.
And you're not being honest with yourself.
I'm not
there.
being
It
honest.
might be what you truly want, but it's not what you're able to.
It's not what you're able to do yet. You have to bring yourself along to reach that point. And when you do, it's amazing. Yeah. But it can be really detrimental if people are just like, oh, I'm just doing it for fun. And then inside they're crumbling and it's not fun and they're super stressed.
Yeah, because it becomes not fun.
Because it's not fun.
Yes.
You know?
All right. Well, do you have anything else to say about our topic about, whether you should skip a workout or not show up to a race?
I do have one more thing to say.
Yes.
Actually, I had a really interesting conversation this past week with an athlete because she is an Ironman gal and has been really dialed into some pretty hard Ironman training for the past few years. But every year we sort of have this conversation because, she is... she's cutting back to half Ironmans this year, but she's also did race last fall, and now we're we did some recovery, and now we're in a different phase, and we're doing so for Ironman you do a lot of like longer, harder sets. There's a lot of like threshold sets. You're training on fatigued legs, so you do a lot of tired training. Like you're trying to extend out the amount of
when you're talking about a full
Ironman,
distance,
you're pushing out your fitness, how long you can do that, and there's a lot of fatigue training involved in that. But what we're doing right now is trying to push her fitness up. And so we're tapping into a lot of systems that we did not for Ironman training. So like shorter, harder stuff, things on like harder efforts with full recovery. And so she's doing these things that are very different than Ironman training. And when you are doing like VO2 max intervals, which is like, 3 to 8 minutes, really, I mean, as hard as you can go, you get full recovery. They're my nightmare. Or like really short, hard stuff. Those are the kinds of intervals where, you can go to a point where once your body starts to fail those intervals, then you stop. Like I'm not, whereas if she's doing Ironman workouts and like it's really hard and she's maybe not hitting the workouts, she can continue to go. She can push past failure. But with these higher end workouts, if you are pushing past failure, you are no longer getting the benefits intended for that type of workout. And so that is a point when you stop. Yeah. And it's just different because you don't want to be, if you keep pushing at that point, you start working a different system.
Yeah. And you start breaking down.
Yeah.
So I had a coach that was like, quit when you're ahead or quit while you're ahead, excuse me, which was not really, it's not, don't finish the workout, but it is, that's what he was saying.
Yeah. So understanding the intended purpose of your workout, and that can help you decide whether or not you should continue a workout or maybe it's time to stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
All
That's
right,
all.
folks.
We've been rambling. Bye.
We beat the horse.
Thanks so much for listening. And remember,
we are in this together. Until next time.